How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? I am Colby Spitz, and I am back here with Billy Lane for another episode of the Coolie McDoolie podcast. We got a pretty cool slate for you guys today. We're going to be talking about the new Incredibles 2 trailer. We're going to be talking about the It 2, some of the casting that they've done already. And then we're going to talk about some Black Panther box office numbers. And then we're going to get into our new segment. We're going to call it Whatcha Watch. And so we're going to talk about a few movies that we've watched this month. Not necessarily new movies, just movies we've never seen before. And we're going to give we're just going to talk about what we thought of them. Even if they're, popular movies from a decade ago, we'll still give our opinions on them. All right.
Sweet.
Sounds good?
Yes, sir.
All right. So let's get into it. What'd you think of the new Incredibles trailer?
I enjoyed it. I'm really looking forward to this movie. This trailer increased that me looking forward to it quite a bit. So I don't know specifics of it. I like that they got the Underminer back. They brought him in, from the end of the first movie. They brought him in. He was like my favorite part of the first movie, just coming in at the end. I don't know. I like the direction they're going in terms of kind of reversing the roles from what they did last movie, it appears.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
I'm excited for it.
I like how they're just not, they're not going how in the first movie, Bob was the one that stayed at home, Mr. Incredible was the one that went out and, fought crime and did all the big missions, and now he's a stay-at-home dad. And I kind of think they're taking a really interesting direction. And I think it's going to be a lot more fun. Not to say the first one isn't fun, but this one I feel like it's just going to be really funny. And it's just going to be enjoyable.
Yeah, no, this trailer I definitely laughed a few times, enjoyed it. I'm not going to say it looks better than the first one, because the first one is...
It's hard to top the first one.
Yeah, the first one's the second best Pixar movie of all time, so, it's a little difficult to top that. Unless you're Monsters, Inc.
There you go. And then I will say, some of the animation in this trailer, I really, really like it. Like, so that's the first time I watched it, it really stuck out to me. Everything from, like, his 5 o'clock shadow, like his facial hair, to some of, like, the harsh lines on people's faces. They're not trying to make you think that these are real people anymore. They're taking that incredible style from that movie, and it has a style to it, and it looks really, really good.
Yeah, the one thing that I thought was funny about the trailer is Jack's size compared to Mr. Incredible.
Yeah.
Jack's just like resting on his shoulder while he's reading in the book, like it's like a cat-sized baby. It's ridiculous, but yeah, I love this trailer. I'm excited for Incredibles 2. So
all in all, I think it's going to be a fantastic movie.
yeah,
Pixar
absolutely.
doesn't tend to let me down too often.
I'm about to say, like, unless it's the Cars movies, they're usually pretty good.
Even the Cars movies aren't that bad. I have to defend my boys at Pixar real quick. They're not great, but they're not that bad. Number 2 is bad, but 1 and 3 are pretty enjoyable.
3 was pretty bad.
No, man, I disagree there.
But that's not what we're here to discuss. So,
but and the last thing I'll say is I like that they're, going with the Elastigirl outfit and all that. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun.
She was wearing. I think they had a clip of her also in the Mrs. Incredible outfit as well. So,
hey, you know what? And I just want a line that is close in comparison to the bit of dialogue between Frozone and his wife. Where's my super suit? I want something. If I can get anything even close to that, I'll leave a happy man.
Well, Frozone's going to be in the movie, so there's a plus.
All right, and then so let's get into the news about It 2. So
you mean the news that
I believe
called?
I believe it was 2 days ago now that we're recording this. I believe it was 2 days ago. It 2 or It Chapter 2 or whatever it is, the second chapter. I don't know what they call it at this point.
It 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Uh, they've officially announced that Jessica Chastain is going to be playing Beverly Marsh. And as I know as Billy called, and, we both kind of had a gut feeling that she was going to be playing her. But that was actually confirmed. And I don't have a problem with that.
She's going to play her, or that she's just talking, she's in talks to play her?
I believe it was actually confirmed. I can double check.
Because if they confirmed it, I'll be even happier, because my prediction would be even more correct.
Well, I mean, do you think she's just that perfect for the role?
But when we did the fan casting, I chose Amy Adams, but I chose her with the caveat that choosing Jessica Chastain would be too easy.
Right.
Because Jessica Chastain, she's one of the best actors on the planet, clearly.
She's very underrated. Very, very underrated.
And she looks like a grown up Bev. So.
And it is in the talks. I apologize. I was incorrect.
It is in talks?
It is in the talks. It is not confirmed yet.
Yeah, but for me, she's perfect for this role. So.
I mean, it would be a huge fault on the part of the the company it's making it to not have her play, because it's such a perfect, like, she was born to play that role.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Even like her acting personality is right there.
Mm-hmm. No, it'll definitely be cool to see her get the opportunity to play an adult Beverly. But one thing I'm kind of curious now is I'm curious as to how many big names they're going to try to get for this movie. How big of a budget they're going to have for this movie and everything.
Right.
Because names like Jessica Chastain obviously don't come cheap. So, I'm curious to see how many of these characters are going to actually be A-list actors, the cream of the crop, if you will.
I mean, I feel like, especially after what the first one did, they're going to go a little bit more lenient. Like, that first one even had some big child actors, and, Bill Skarsgård is a pretty big name. Finn,
but, I mean,
Finn
I don't
Wolfhard.
think any of them come close to the cost that Jessica Chastain is going to cost.
No, absolutely.
Like, if they go ahead and cast, like, a Chris Pratt or, some of the other big names that people have been fan casting.
Yeah, they're not going to...
or a Seth Rogen. Those names aren't going to come cheap.
They're not going to be cheap, but I do think they're going to have more leniency, and they're going to have more of an availability, and a lot more leniency, I think is what I'm looking for, in casting people like that.
Yeah,
they have the studio's thumbs up.
Have a bigger budget than the first one, but the question is, how much of that budget do they put into the cast at this point? Because I mean, there's 6 kids?
Yeah, I believe 6 or 7.
Maybe 7. So you're gonna have to cast all of them. You're not obviously gonna be able to get big names for all 7 kids.
Right.
And
I feel like somebody like Seth Rogen would probably do that role for free, so he just wants to be part of that movie.
Hey, I'll accept that.
All right, and then what do we got with Black Panther numbers?
So, yes, with Black Panther, the smash hit that it is, had one of the greatest opening weekends, of all time. It made over, I believe, $202 million in its 3-day weekend. And, $242 million over the 4-day weekend. The $202 million is the 5th biggest 3-day weekend of all time, and the $242 is the 2nd biggest 4-day weekend of all time. And then it continued even into yesterday, which is Tuesday, making over $20 million on Tuesday, which is the biggest Tuesday for any Marvel Cinematic Universe movie of all time.
Wow.
I mean, it's over $460 million now worldwide, over $260 million domestically, and it's been out for 5 days.
I mean, it is pretty. It's wild to see the numbers it's doing, but it doesn't surprise me knowing the kind of movie it is, and some of the names you have in it, and the praise it gets. It's a mix of, the culture that's coming out to support it, and then you're getting the good reviews, which brings another group of people into it. I'm not surprised, and I think it's. I'm glad it's going to a movie like this compared to a movie like,
Transformers.
Yeah, exactly. Transformers, or one of those big studios that don't care so much about the movie they're making. They're just looking for a quick few dollars.
Yeah, no, this is definitely amazing and awesome to see. The thing that impresses me the most is the Tuesday numbers. Perhaps, I mean, this is a film. When you make 202 million in your first 3 days, then 242 million 4 days, you'd think there'd start to be some slowdown once the work week started. People
Right.
would be like, okay, this is cool this weekend, but we're working now. We're gonna kind of start doing work stuff and getting back to maybe not seeing movies. Um, but this movie it's showed legs that very few movies have shown in the past. You look at its opening day wasn't as big as movies like Star Wars, The Last Jedi, or Star Wars: The Force Awakens. But those last few days, the 4-day weekend, it made more than those movies. Those latter days, it had a less significant of a drop off, and it's holding better than those movies, which I think that's pretty amazing.
I mean, I will say I think Marvel is very smart in releasing this. They released it on the Friday of a 3-day weekend. Monday being President's Day in the States.
Yeah.
At least schools by me had off. It's a federal holiday, so people had off work, and it's a good chance to, if it's not going to be as busy on that Monday. Everybody goes to the theater then. It's going to bring in big numbers like that, and I think it was smart to do.
This is also a movie that people are going back to see. I believe you said Fandango said something about over 60% of people who bought tickets for it through Fandango have said they're going to go back to see it. I've already seen it multiple times. I think you said you've already seen it multiple
times. I've seen it twice.
I'm probably going to see it again at some point as well. This is a movie that, when with no clear competition anytime soon, it's going to hold extremely well. And I think it's a valid question at this point. I guess we'll see after next week and how well it's holding. If this movie can maybe compete box office wise with Infinity War that comes out in May.
I don't see it being able to hold up to that, just because Infinity Wars has been in the making for about a decade at this point.
Yeah, yeah.
And as much as Black Panther is building all this hype everywhere, even if you haven't been actively watching MCU films, you've at least seen one or two of them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anybody who hasn't seen at least one or two of them.
Yeah.
And so, everything's climaxing right here, and I don't see any. I feel like that's gonna just blow away box office numbers. It might even blow past The Force Awakens.
Really, you think it's gonna make more than The Force Awakens?
I think there's a strong chance.
I wouldn't be surprised if Infinity War made 240 million its opening weekend or whatever. The Force Awakens made over 240 million its opening 3-day weekend, which is the record. But because it's coming out in May, it's coming out the first weekend of May, and you see what else is coming out in May. Solo's coming out in May. Deadpool 2 is coming out in May. It's going to have a lot more competition it's facing in May and then into June, compared to a movie like Black Panther, which, I mean, the next big challenge it's going to face, the only big challenge it's really going to face anytime soon is, I think, the second weekend of March, A Wrinkle in Time comes out.
Yeah.
And then after that, you have Tomb Raider. But
I don't think either of those really have a shot of putting up any sort of competition to Black Panther, though.
Well, in terms of, I think Wrinkle in Time is going to open fairly well. It'll probably be, if I had to guess, I'd guess somewhere in the $80 to $100 million opening weekend range. and that'll be Black Panther's third or fourth weekend. Fourth
Right.
weekend, I believe. So it could very realistically top Black Panther's fourth weekend. I think it will top Black Panther in Black Panther's fourth weekend. Um, and like I said, it's something that after this weekend we'll have a clear image of, because Black Panther, this is the fifth biggest opening 3-day weekend of all time domestically, the fourth biggest 4-day weekend domestically. Infinity War, even if it does, this would be doing well for Infinity War. Like if Infinity War put these numbers up, people would have said that's doing well for Infinity War.
Right.
Um, and then the question of how well Infinity War holds with the competition compared to how well Black Panther holds, I think we'll have a clear picture of that in the coming weeks, just because I think Black Panther is going to hold very well. And I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up holding slightly better than Infinity War. I'm not saying it will make more than Infinity War, but I'm saying there's a chance.
I think there's definitely a chance, just in the sheer part that this one is bringing people out to see this movie that just don't see movies. I work at a movie theater, and so hearing people say, "Oh yeah, I'm seeing this movie. I haven't been to the theater in 5-6 years, and more than that, I've heard." So it's bringing people out that didn't plan on seeing movies, that just don't have that same connection to see the next big blockbuster comes out every few months. Instead, they're going to see this because it's such a cultural phenomenon almost.
It's very much that event feeling you get when the Star Wars movie comes out. When a Last Jedi, or especially like when the Force Awakens came out, that was a huge, huge deal. It's not clearly numbers wise, it's not doing as well as the Force Awakens. It's not going to make as much money as the Force Awakens, but it's got a similar feel in terms of just how big of an event it is.
Right, like it doesn't feel like what would have been, the 18th or 19th in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, just because of the way like that movie doesn't feel like part of this franchise. It feels like it could stand on its own and still be a really enjoyable film.
Yeah, this is very much its own film, and I think
that's proving these numbers.
Yeah, and it's the fact that it's something that I don't think we've necessarily seen completely in the MCU, in terms of the type of movie it is, and obviously the social, cultural significance this film has is no doubt adding to its success.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a great film, and it deserves all the success it's getting.
All right. Well, on that note, let's go ahead and get into our next segment, and it's Whatcha Watchin. So we're gonna be talking about the movies we saw this month. So we're gonna be talking about everything from February 1st up until today. It is currently the 20th or the 21st of February as we're recording this.
Yeah, 22nd.
Is it the 22nd? Oh, yeah, I guess it is. It's been a long few days, alright? Give me a break. So yeah, we're going to be talking about everything from the 22nd, from the 1st of February. It doesn't have to be a movie that came out this month. It could be a movie that we didn't get to see in theaters until this month. It could be a movie that has been out for 35 years and we still have just now gotten to it. So we're just going to give not so much a review, just how we felt about the movie, our overall thoughts of it. So you can go ahead. What was your first movie that you saw this month?
The first movie I'm going to talk about, there's two new movies that I saw this month. The first one is I finally got around to seeing The Disaster Artist. I didn't see it in theaters, but I did get around to seeing it. Are we doing spoilers for movies that are relatively new? I know I asked you.
Yeah, go for it.
Go for it?
Yeah, go for it. Spoiler warning that we're going to be talking
I'll try
brief spoilers in this.
Include spoilers, but we'll put a spoiler warning up just so I don't get in trouble if I do accidentally say spoilers. So I liked this film a lot. I was expecting to love it, however, and I didn't. I liked it. A lot of the comedy, while it was funny, it didn't land entirely with me. And I don't really like Tommy Wiseau after seeing this movie.
Really? It made you like him less?
Yeah, this movie just kind of portrays him as a very, what's the word I'm looking for? unnecessarily mysterious individual, I think is a good way to describe
Yeah,
it.
I think that'd be fair.
So after I watched this movie, I was kind of like, if this is genuinely the way things went down, this guy's kind of an ass. But I, James Franco was fantastic in this movie, so I did laugh. I liked a lot of Seth Rogen's stuff. I laughed at a lot of what he did. Um, I'm not a huge Dave Franco fan, but I liked him in this movie. Um, so overall, it was a good movie. I don't think it was a great movie. I was expecting to see a movie, that was like, though this is an Oscar contender for Best Picture and all this stuff, and it was good. And it was maybe even very good. It just for me, it wasn't on the level of a lot of movies that people were talking about as the best movies of last year.
Well, I will say, I have not personally read the book by Greg Sestero, the disaster artist, but what I've heard is that that book is even, it depicts Tommy as a little bit more of a, I don't want to be rude, but kind of an asshole. That, especially the fight sequence between the two of them, not the
Mm-hmm.
fight sequence, like the arguments,
Yeah.
that, Tommy is just kind of unjustified in what he thinks. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry, I got Black Panther on the brain. I'm thinking fight sequences and
I'm picturing Tommy
actions.
Wiseau now in a fight scene, and it's crazy.
Hey, Samurai Cop 2. But I do believe that it's a good movie. It's good. It's kind of mindless humor, if you ask me. It's good to
Mhm.
just have on in the background, and you don't have to be paying attention to the whole thing. You can just look over and start chuckling at a few parts.
Yeah. Well, for me, it wasn't just like a pure comedy. Like there was a message to the film. It had a story, and there was a reason beyond people will laugh that it was made. It felt very much. It was made with a lot of heart in the way that like these dudes were just chasing their dream. This is what they wanted to do, and yeah, the world laughed at him. But hey, he's made a movie that's had it's been over a decade and it's still being loved and watched and talked about, and it's like he achieved his dream basically. It's more than just a pure comedy. It's not Dodgeball
Right.
or Blades of Glory or anything, but
Just to Will Ferrell. It's just not Will Ferrell.
it's not Will Ferrell
Um.
or Adam Sandler or anything, but
Yeah. I will say, yeah, I appreciate the movie and that aspect of it. That, you really feel like, who made this movie and what the movie's about. It's just about, people that cared about it. Like, they care about the story, and the
yeah.
people, obviously, that are in it cared about, and they just wanted to chase their dreams to get to where they were. Um, and so I am kind of glad that the movie's a very enjoyable one. It, I don't want to say it's a tearjerker, but it's a little bit emotional just in the fact that some of the parts, like just being rejected and rejected and rejected, and just
Yeah,
saying screw this and go and do your own thing. People laugh at it, but you still made your own movie, and it's still getting praise today. Not praise, but
I'm really curious where Tanya Wiseau got all that money from now, but
isn't everybody though?
I think everybody is. So,
All right,
um,
and I'll go ahead and talk about my what I saw this month. I'm gonna start off with Hostels. It is the Christian Bale, Western Cowboys versus Indians type movie.
is
I
it really
will
Cowboys versus Indians?
say it again.
Is it really Cowboys versus Indians?
Uh, sort of. It's not so much. It's kind of like a trek throughout the Wild West, I guess.
Okay.
So, it's the story. I went in very blind, not knowing what to expect. Um, yeah, Christian Bale is known for killing Indians, or then I'm sorry, I should refer to them as the natives. Christian Bale goes in, he kills the natives, he imprisons the natives, and I think this was set in about the early 1800s. I don't exactly
Yep.
remember.
It looked like it was set sometime in the 1800s. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't exactly remember the date, but it was right around then. And it was enjoyable. It had a good storyline. I had a fun time watching it. Some of it was a little dramatized.
Hmm.
Christian Bale overacts to a laughable extent in a few particular scenes.
Really?
Overall, I won't say it was a fantastic movie, but it didn't bore me and I didn't hate it.
Hmm.
It was pretty decent. I wouldn't go tell you to watch this movie right now, but you know if you see it at the $5 bin at a Walmart in a few months, go pick it up. It's a good watch.
Yeah. I like I've been trying to see this movie for a few weeks, but I didn't see it before Black Panther came out, and then Black Panther came out, and now I don't have time because I saw Black Panther twice last weekend, and this weekend I'm probably not going to get around to seeing it because I'm probably seeing Annihilation. So, I mean, I didn't really know what this film was about other than it was a Christian Bale Western. So I didn't really know anything until you just said that. I would like to clarify one thing though. Christian Bale isn't killing Native Americans. Christian Bale's character is killing Native Americans.
Okay, that is true. Yeah, I guess I should have made that a little bit more
No,
clear.
I'm just messing with you. I don't think anybody actually thought Christian Bale was going around killing Native Americans.
Hey man, you
But
never know nowadays. The
if I
world's a
came out, I'd
crazy
be very,
place.
very disappointed because Christian Bale is a fantastic actor, which is why I am surprised that you said he overacts a couple of scenes.
You know,
Um,
I will say this in his defense. It is hard to tell when he's overacting and when the direction of the directing of the film is odd or a little out of place. Or that editing is strangely put together.
yeah,
It's just some parts just feel very off. They're just not entirely correct. And I don't know whose blame that falls on, but there's just more than a few times you're like, that was just weird. Why'd you
okay.
show me that? Why'd you tell me that? You know, they just don't come back to that in the story. And a few times I just thought it was a little strange. But I will say that it depicts a lot of the action sequences and the events and the fights between whoever's fighting. I'm not gonna say anything for sake of spoilers,
Mhm.
but it's enjoyable. It's fat. It's some parts are very slow, some parts are very fast paced.
Yeah.
It's pretty decent. I don't have
Yeah.
any huge praises, but I don't have any big critiques.
So it's a solid above average film. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's a solid 6 or so.
Okay, that's pretty good. Like I said, I still would like to see this movie. I just haven't gotten around to seeing it yet. But the for me, my next film, um, I finally got around to watching X-Men First Class this month. I know it's been a while since that movie came out. I believe it came out in 2011. Um, and I watched Days of Future Past when Days of Future Past came out, and I loved it. And I watched Apocalypse when Apocalypse came out, and I acknowledged it was a movie. Um, no, it wasn't bad. It was all right. It wasn't that bad. But I never actually watched X Men First Class. I don't know why. I finally got around to watching it, and it's much closer to X Men Days of Future Past quality than it is to X Men Apocalypse quality. I will say that. Um, I really love James McAvoy as Professor X. I love Michael Fassbender as Magneto, and I love the dichotomy between those two characters' philosophies. Um, and this is really an introduction to those characters. You see them meeting each other for the first time and getting to know each other, and you see them as friends turned bitter enemies. Not really bitter enemies, reluctant enemies. I think is a good word, a good way to describe it. Um, Obviously, if you've seen Days of Future Past, it emphasizes Mystique more so than the earlier X Men films. I enjoyed this film. I think if you like movies in the superhero genre, this is one you should check out. Um, and overall, I'm glad I saw it.
Yeah, I have to say this is one that I've also not seen, and I kind of hate myself for not. I haven't seen First Class. I haven't seen Days of Future Past or Apocalypse, any of the newer X-Men flicks. I just haven't gotten to.
They're definitely, before Logan came out, Days of Future Past was by far my favorite X-Men film. And Apocalypse was a movie. uh, but First Class, like I said, it might be the best X-Men film besides Logan and Days of Future Past. It's right up there with X2 for me.
Wow, that's pretty high praise, because X2 is a good film.
Yeah, X2 is a very good film. I really, obviously, this is the problem I have with the X-Men universe, is the whole chain of events timeline is really weird, because it's like the first three films happen, and then somewhere along the line the Wolverine films happen, and then you go back for prequels in X-Men First Class, which is the movie we're talking about. I just forgot the name for a second. X-Men First Class, and then X-Men Days of Future Past is like this weird way of kind of being able to use the new characters they cast in the prequel, or actors they cast in the prequel, and telling new stories that are different from the original three X-Men films.
Right.
So like Apocalypse is in a different timeline than the first three X-Men films because of the events of Days of Future Past, which is like a weird, trippy time travel experience. It's a great movie. It's just there's a lot of plot holes that open up when you make an interesting timeline like this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And First Class definitely raises some of those, and Days of Future Past does as well. But like I said, they're still probably the two best X-Men films not called Logan. So First Class is an exceptional movie.
All right, so I'll have to be one that I go check out, I suppose.
Yeah.
All right, and then the next, I got two in a row I'm going to run through real quick. Okay. I saw Maze Runner, the third one, Death Cure. That one was fairly decent. There were a lot of problems with it. It was very basic storyline. Really just, it felt like they were just trying to get this trilogy over with, but wanted to make it a full trilogy.
Yeah, this is weird. I feel like it's one of those movie trilogies that has come after Hunger Games or after Twilight that's tried to take advantage of those movies' success and just hasn't.
Right. I mean, in its defense, the first one it had some interesting concepts, and it wasn't a painstaking movie to sit through. Like, I enjoyed it.
The first one wasn't a bad movie. It just wasn't a great movie.
Now, I went into Death Cure having not seen the second one, and I had my friend I went with, who that was even the reason I went. He was asking me to go with him, and he was kind of my exposition for a lot of what happened in the second one, so I understood a lot of it. And I got through, I knew who the characters were, so I had a pretty good grasp of it. It was decent. From what I've heard, it was probably better than the second one. Not near the first one, though, because it just was a lot more boring. It was... Some of my biggest problem with it, though, were some of the religious themes in this movie were so beat you over the head. Like, it was like, this guy's supposed to represent Jesus, understand that now. And it was like, oh, you missed the first nod to it. Well, here's 17 more, including him, being the immune one, and his blood is what saves everybody, and he gets stabbed in the side, and it's just, it's so over the top. It gets kind of annoying at certain points. And I'm not trying to knock anyone's religion if that's what you believe. But there's a time and a place, I feel. And to hit you over the head with it so many times in a movie that doesn't really have... It doesn't have a need for those aspects. I just didn't feel like it was necessary.
Yeah, I have no problem with presenting... talking about political or social or religious components. I just like films not being heavy-handed with it or going too far with it. And if this film does that, then I'm probably not going to be a huge fan of it, because if you go too far on, no matter what side of any of these arguments you're on, if you go too far with exploring that or trying to beat people over the head with that, that bothers me so much in films.
Right.
Because I'm not saying you shouldn't bring those topics up, because you should, but you should do it in a smart way, a sensible way, a way that flows with the film, and a way that doesn't make people like uncomfortable. Well, not necessarily. In a way that's smart about it.
Yeah. It just feels, you can have elements of a a religious character as the protagonist or the antagonist.
Mm-hmm.
Have elements in there from the Bible or from any scripture or sacred book of that nature. But when you hit it over the head so many times to the point where you have to be sleeping through the movie to not catch some of it, it just gets a little frustrating. If it's subtle, I get it, but it's just like, oh, he's supposed to represent. In this case, it was Jesus. It was Jesus.
Yeah.
So it was, oh, he's supposed to represent Jesus because of this thing. Oh, and then they're showing it again, and 7 more times, and it just doesn't stop. And it gets a little boring sometimes. I don't know. It's not a huge flaw to have with the movie. This is just me personally, not being a huge fan of it.
That's something that if it's done too much, definitely takes me out of a film.
Right. That's the best word. It takes you where it takes a little bit of time to get me immersed into a film. Once you ask me to start thinking about this, and I see it again and again and again, once I've already clicked, it takes me right back out of it, and I'm kind of just sitting there watching people on screen instead of being in that universe.
Yeah. So what was the last film you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I didn't mean to go on that tangent like that. That lasted a little bit longer than expected. So the next movie I saw was Jim Carrey's Man on the Moon. It is where he is depicting the life of comedian, sort of entertainer, there's a lot of A's and E's in this sentence. Where Jim Carrey is playing the actor and the entertainer and comedian Andy Kaufman.
There you go.
From Taxi, from SNL. It's a very interesting film to watch, especially if you watch the newest. There's a documentary on Netflix now talking about the behind the scenes of this film,
Really?
Which is what got me excited to watch Man on the Moon, because I watched the documentary first. And Jim Carrey's performance is phenomenal. He really nails the role as Andy Kaufman. It's phenomenal, honestly. And a lot of the storyline is good. There are the flaws in it of the story. Has its faults, and it's a little rushed at certain points and drawn out in other points. Overall, if you're a Jim Carrey fan like I am, I would say go watch it. It's not one of his best movies, but it's not the worst one I've seen. It was fun to watch, and it was interesting, just in the eyes of how he looked up to him portraying one of the people he looked up to the most. Yeah. I had a fun time watching this movie.
Yeah, that's awesome. Jim Carrey, I think, is an underrated actor. I think he's a great comedic actor, and people recognize that. But as far as being able to pull off other elements of a performance, he's, I think, extremely underrated. I haven't seen this film. I can't add too much to it.
Right.
But it sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing to watch. It tells you a lot about who Andy Kaufman is, and why some of the things that were, because he was almost a hated comedian by a lot of people, because he wouldn't view himself as a comedian, but as more of a, this is my expression of art and entertainment to everybody. Laugh if you want to. or cry if you want to. Kind of coming back to Tommy Wiseau, you can laugh, you can cry, just have a good time with friends. But that was the thing with him. You never knew when he was being serious, when he was joking, what was true, what was a lie. And it shows a lot on the backhand of that as to where he was coming from with it. And I honestly believe Andy Kaufman was one of the greatest entertainers.
Yeah, he's extremely talented.
Yeah, he was very unique in what he did. And it was a good look into not so much his psyche, because nobody knew his mind, but as into his, what he was going for, what he was trying to get across. It was very interesting to watch, and especially if it's coupled with that documentary.
Is it better than Maze Runner Death Cure?
Yes. 17 times in a row.
Yeah.
Yep. The best part about Maze Runner Death Cure was they put the Wilhelm scream in there during a big, annihilation death scene where everybody's dying, and you just hear it, and it's just plain as day. And I laughed out loud. I thought it was hysterical.
You laughed at a death scene, man? I don't think you were supposed to.
I know, neither do I. That's the kind of movie it is.
I'm sorry you had to see it then.
I think that about wraps it up. Anything else you got for us tonight, sir?
No. That's all I have. Yeah.
All right.
So.
Yeah, we'll talk to you in about a week or so.
The next thing we'll probably do something. At least I'd like to do something with Annihilation. Because I've grown more and more excited for that movie as it's come closer and I've heard more about it.
All right, then.
I'd like to do something with that. Hopefully soon.
We may. Chances are for the next anytime there's a movie like this that we want to go see, we're not going to do a full review like we did Black Panther. Those will probably be reserved for the movies that have a lot of hype building to them, or are big franchise movies or blockbusters. But movies like this, we might give like a half review to.
Mini review.
Yeah, give like a 20-minute preview, just what we thought of it, how we felt about it. But yeah, so you can expect something like that for Annihilation. I think that's about all we got.
We covered I think everything. So
yeah, perfect. All right, you guys have a good night, or a good day, or a good afternoon whenever you're watching this or listening, for that matter.
Didn't say morning. Have a good morning.
Yeah, have a good morning. Yeah, if you're in the shower drinking your coffee. I don't know why you're drinking coffee in the shower. That's not really a good idea. But
listening to this podcast, that's interesting. That's an interesting combination of things.
Hey, you know what? You do what you gotta do. Everybody has a different routine. All right, I'm gonna stop before things get a little too out of hand.
Yeah, have a good time wherever time it is.
All right, later.